Well, speaking of the key of Jacob Fatu, the Samoan werewolf, is where we're rounding this program out because the men's tag team title was also on the line with Ciampa and Johnny Sameface, who's also from Cleveland. He let everybody know in his pre-match interview. They let him talk. Jesus Christ. They were defending against Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu, accompanied by Tonga Buyer's Remorse Loa.
Stop it. He's my favorite guy in the company right now.
So they put Jacob in this thing, and thank God. And he's getting over like a superstar. But Gargano, as I said, tried to do a fired up promo because he's a hometown guy. But we've seen this. I don't know how he lasts that long in this environment where he never gets any different, grows as a person, never blossoms like Drew McIntyre has. He's small, he's plain, he's technically proficient, and he looks like a fucking nerd. And he's never going to be a top guy. I can understand with Ciampa, he's in his 40s now, and he's had a history of major injuries that he's come back from like a goddamn cyborg. But maybe, and he's got a unique look and a style. His work is great, but maybe they don't want to invest that much because of those issues. But what the fuck? Why keep this fucking Gargano around? In this star-filled environment, what does he offer to this fucking program except a boring indie presence? Is my question to you.
Well, you wouldn't want to lose a talent like that to AEW, so you got to do what you can to lock them
God,
down.
he'd be perfect over there.
He'd actually probably be in the super heavyweight division over there. But look, he's not my favorite. I'm not a fan of Gargano's, and once you point out his facial expressions, it never changes. Once you hear his promos,
never changes.
You realize that's not his thing. The skits that he was doing with his wife for a while, with Theory and Indy Hartwell, where they all lived together. It's like Three's Company, but there were four. It was terrible. Yeah, I mean, people like his matches because he kicks out of moves. He'll take big moves, he'll kick out of everything, and that's the key. You can take someone who looks like dog shit, and if they can work a match without getting hurt and just kick out of everything that happens to them, everyone will be raving about him.
Well, he didn't kick out of everything that happened to him here, because it was a decent match, short for this program's norm. And, but Jacob Fatu hit Gargano with a pop-up Samoan drop, a springboard moonsault, an implant DDT, 1, 2, 3. Thank you for coming, and stood over his fallen fucking body. Oh, werewolf of Samoa.
Isn't he from the Bay Area?
That's what I was doing. I was baying at the moon.
All right.
Now, Harley just turned her head and looked at me. I'm sorry, baby. It's okay.
Now, obviously, tag team wrestling and the tag team division has meant nothing. It means nothing in WWE because of the way they use it. But every now and then, the tag titles end up around or near main event people. What do you think of the idea of putting the belts on Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu here?
Well, this is perfect because even if the belts still don't mean anything because there are not a variety of full-time teams to challenge the bloodline at the level that they need to be. In other words, everybody else is a middle card fucking talent in the tag team division. But with the bloodline having the gold, and it's part of a promise that they're starting to fulfill of winning all the gold again, and having this hierarchy be dominant like the last one was, so that makes it mean something. And also you can have the Ortons and the Owenses and people, the LA Knight, whoever the fuck, teaming up to go after the tag team title, and you can put that in the main. You can't have the bloodline versus Pretty Deadly or whatever the fuck in any kind of main event. but you can pair up the normal single stars that are fighting the bloodline. So it's going to hopefully elevate the tag team title rather than the title elevating the team, because it's part of the top story now. So I like that. And obviously, we said it was going to happen. It had to happen. It couldn't go any other way, because they weren't going to fucking beat Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga or any members of the bloodline with Tommaso Ciampa and Jarny Gargano. Oh, Jarn.
Jarny Wrestling.
Jarny Wrestling. Carney Wrestling, more like it. But so that was SmackDown, and that set us up for, again, they're in Cleveland, and they've drawn 60-something thousand people over 2 days, and this was a 2-hour infomercial for what they were going to be invited to come back and pay to see the following night. I mean, but am I wrong? How is this? TKO has hired a staff of mass hypnotists to cast a spell on these people, because it's elementary shit, but everybody's over and people are fighting to give them their fucking money. How has this transpired?
I think it goes to the argument that the simple stuff is what works. And for years under Vince, they got away from a lot of the simple things that always worked, to the point where you would leave a segment of the audience with resentment, or they would feel like WWE resented them.
Yeah.
And you don't have that anymore. And no one's presented in an insulting fashion for the most part. I mean, like even the goofy stuff like the models, or not the models, but the model girl and Otis, like that's the height of the silliness now. So that ain't that bad, because it used to be a whole lot lower.
Yeah, well, quite a while back, Vince was out there pulling his pants down so somebody's head could be shoved up his ass.
And none of that stuff was on this show. You know, none of the things that fill up SmackDown and Raw, either matches that, you know, no one for the most part really cares about. It's not none of the main event people, none of the main event talking segments, or Raw, where you do have some silliness and, of course, the odd zombie or two. That wasn't on SummerSlam. You know, so it goes to say a little bit about what the priorities are and what's being put on these shows. And again, even if, you know, the babyface loses, nothing is done in a way that you feel like you're yanking the rug out from the fans. And you saw that a lot with Vince, whether it's things like guys losing in their hometown.
Yeah.
For no reason. I mean, I'm not saying everyone has to win, like Eddie Gilbert at Memphis. That doesn't have to be that way everywhere. But it became like a thing to almost like fuck with the wrestler. And I don't think right now Triple H and Nick Khan and Lee Fitting are fucking with the wrestlers. They're collaborating with them. And, you know, happy wife, happy life, happy wrestling locker room, happy fan base. Who knows?
Well, and you know, at the top, the Nick Khans and the TKO people and the Ari Shapiros and Ari
Emanuel, Mark Shapiro.
Mark Shapiro. Well, or it could be Ari Shapiro and Mark Emanuel.
It could be, but those are different people that don't work for this company or have.
Well, regardless, it's a new day. They're just maximizing revenue. They're used to. It was almost like when some city government heard a wrestling show was coming to town, they're like, oh, shit, we got to try to put a stop to that. Now the fucking towns are paying them to please take millions of dollars to come here.